It's difficult to imagine a time when Rama was not one of Hinduism's most important gods or the deity most frequently evoked by politicians. But 1000 years ago, South Asian rulers were more interested in Shiva and Vishnu as paramount gods. The rise of Rama took centuries, taking him from Sanskrit literature to temple reliefs to the divine analogue of living kings, enshrined as one of the great gods of Vijayanagara, once one of the largest cities on earth. I'm Anirudh Kanisetti, historian author of Lords of the Deccan. Welcome to Thinking Medieval, where every week we tell you something new about our complex, innovative past. Always feel free to check out our research and citations below, and remember that we're all figuring out how to think about our messy, bloody, dazzling history. The Rama legend is one of India's oldest, but it's not clear when it moved from a bardic tale into the Sanskrit mainstream, a process that brought it into courts across South Asia and beyond, as we talked about in this video here. In her paper, Historical Evolution of the Rama Legend, historian Suvira Jaiswal pointed out that the Sanskrit version of the Rama legend, which decisively identified Rama as an avatar of Vishnu, emerged relatively late, perhaps as late as the 2nd century CE. Around this time, Vishnu became a major royal deity and also assimilated Krishna, the ancient hero of the Mathura region. Before this point, as suggested by inscriptions and coinage, Vasudeva Krishna was a popular, relatively independent god, and the evidence for Rama worship is somewhat hazy. The Gupta dynasty, which we talked about here, dominated the Gangetic plains from the 4th to the 6th centuries, and they made little mention of Rama in their inscriptions and coinage, though they closely identified themselves with Vishnu in other materials. In Rāmāyaṇa and Political Imagination in India, Sanskritist Sheldon Pollock points out that it was in literature the Rama legend really took off in the 1st millennium CE, inspiring the poet Kalidasa, the Vakataka king Pravarasena, and many others. Soon after, new kingdoms in the Deccan occasionally used Rama in their self-presentations, as pointed out by art historian Parul Dhar in our chapter, The Rāmāyaṇa Retold by Sculptors and Scribes in pre-Vijayanagara Karnataka. But up to the 8th century, these were mostly passing references in inscriptions or minor reliefs in temples. Rama appeared alongside other heroes and minor divinities like Yudhishthira and Brihaspati. Rama became a larger part of the iconographic program of temples in the 8th century when the Chalukya, Pallava and Rashtrakuta dynasties struggled for primacy in the Deccan. As Dhar shows, in the Virupaksha and Papanatha temples at Pattadakal, large sculptures of Rama legends cast the king as Rama and his enemies as Ravana, but these appeared in temples dedicated primarily to Shiva. Further south, notes Pollock, 10th century Chola kings attempting to conquer the island of Lanka occasionally compared themselves or their vassals to Rama. Bronze sculptures of Rama were present in some Chola temples, but as archaeometallurgist Sharada Srinivasan writes in her chapter, Rāmāyaṇa bronzes and sculptures from the Chola to Vijayanagara periods, their dimensions suggest Rama was considered a divine hero rather than a paramount god. So, what changed? From the 10th century, as we saw in an earlier edition of Thinking Medieval, Central Asia and Northern India re-entered each other's geopolitical orbits for the first time since the Hunnic Wars, which ended in the 7th century CE. Turkic peoples began to move aggressively into both Iran and Punjab. As before, the Central Asians brought with them confident, assertive new political cultures. The last major movement of Central Asians into the subcontinent had lasted for nearly 700 years, from the 1st century BCE to the 7th century CE, and for the beginning of this period they were condemned by the Brahmanical writers of the Puranas, even as they were enthusiastically embraced by Buddhism. More in this video here. In the 10th century, though, South Asia's political culture had become substantially Puranic and was far less willing to accommodate Central Asian ways of kingship, and Central Asian kings, now seeking legitimacy in the wider Islamic world, more in this video here, were also intransigent and intolerant. Though violence was not new to northern India, such a direct confrontation of Central Asian and northern Indian political systems certainly was. 2 centuries of raids and battles from the 10th to the 12th centuries transformed how both sides presented themselves in their court literature, more in this video here. Central Asian kings claimed to be agents of jihad, and North Indian kings claimed to be protectors of Brahmins and temples against foreign barbarians. For North Indians at this time, as Pollock points out, the Ramayana provided an ideal political canvas and mytho-historical frame. Unlike the Mahabharata, the Ramayana supports divine kingship and is not morally ambiguous. Its central struggle is quite literally between a god king and a demon king. As such, many kings in northwest India, including the Vaghelas, Chahamanas or Chauhans, and Chaulukyas or Solankis, claimed a direct equivalence with Rama and compared their Turk rivals to demons. The Gahadwala kings who ruled Varanasi built a temple to Rama in the 12th century. In practice, of course, Hindu rulers still made land grants to Muslims, as I talked about in this video, and Muslim rulers claimed titles such as Srimad, as we talked about in this video. The archaeological and literary picture indicates that the establishment of sultanates in North India, while certainly a departure, was not a devastating or jarring dark age as right-wing influencers claim. Medieval peoples could absolutely be xenophobic and fanatical, but we should take their rhetoric with a pinch of salt and verify it with other evidence. All this aside, the contact with Turkic polity certainly invigorated how Indian kings saw Rama, and he finally came into his own as a major political figure, the king's divine analogue. Across India from the 12th century, both Shaivite and Vaishnavite kings compared themselves to him and their rivals, irrespective of religion, to Ravana. The most ambitious attempt to link kings to Rama unfolded in Vijayanagara, present-day Hampi, from the 14th to the 17th centuries. At the very heart of Vijayanagara's royal centre, an expansive zone of palaces, markets and temples, was the Ramachandra temple, known today as the Hazara Rama. In the Ramachandra temple at Vijayanagara, archaeologist John M. Fritz writes that the shrine was the focus of the city, positioned at the nexus of its major roads. Walking around the royal centre invariably meant the circumambulation of the temple. It linked the royal palaces to the more public spaces, and Rama's idol may have moved in procession along the same routes used by the king. Archaeologist Anila Verghese, in her paper Deities, Cults and Kings at Vijayanagara, points out that there is little evidence for Rama worship in the area before the city was founded in the 14th century. But during the city's 15th century heyday, its rulers systematically linked the site with Kishkinda, the legendary kingdom of the Vanara monkey men believed to have aided Rama. They did this by identifying hills there with the sites of Ramayana events and building temples on them, positioned such that they would be visible from the Ramachandra temple, where many state rituals were performed. The shrine attracted endowments from Vijayanagara vassals who, by publicly associating themselves with the god, also signaled their allegiance to the king. The 16th century Emperor Krishnaraya, the most powerful of Vijayanagara rulers, donated 6 villages to Ramachandra for 44 religious services. Krishnaraya's primary rivals at the time were not the Deccan Sultanates but the Gajapatis of Odisha. Ramachandra, we must assume, was intended to support Krishnaraya's wars against all his enemies, not just a single religious group. Vijayanagara was certainly interested in conquering other Hindus, even to the point of oppression, as we talked about in this video. There's much more that should be said about the historical evolution of Rama, his devotees of many faiths, his appropriators from many polities, ancient and modern. But let's leave his story here for now. I'm sure this is a bit of a controversial episode, so if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Follow us everywhere on social media. You can find me on Instagram at @Buddha and at Connected Histories, and on Twitter at @Ekanisati. We'll see you next week.